morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me for this quick session on brand strategy. When I started out in the advertising industry, I started with BBDO in Europe as an art director and then went on to work with Bates Advertising in Hong Kong, Singapore, and then the Indochina region. And in the mid-90s, I transitioned from my creative director role to include also strategy and insight. And so I've been developing brands and brand strategies for something like 25 years now. And something that always bugged me was the absence of really good tools or approaches to create a brand strategy, rather than just a brand and a big campaign implementation and a few values here and there that we're driving and measuring. So today's session is just taking a very quick look at how we deal with brand strategy and how we look at it. Of course, that won't be exhaustive, and therefore I encourage you, if you want to discuss it further, just get in touch with us, mextconsulting.com, or look at TrustLogic.info and get in touch with us, and we're happy to discuss further with you. One important aspect that I found in working with my clients is that, of course, a brand development is a long-term aspect. The impact of brand development, well done, is fairly immediate. I was interviewed once from a marketing magazine about brand, and it talked about the cumulative effect of brand over time and that you can't expect immediate shifts. I don't consider that to be correct. I think if a brand is well developed and you implement it well, you can see shifts within 2 to 4 weeks, whether that is in bottom line impact or in measurable shifts in your brand attributes. In fact, with one of our clients, when we implemented the brand campaign, we could see shifts within 2 weeks on their brand values, but interestingly as well, in their customer satisfaction values, where just through the brand repositioning, customer satisfaction went up quite considerably. With other clients, we can see bottom line improvements of 30, 50% sometimes within a matter of weeks or within a matter of months. The first example that I was talking about was in telecommunications, one example in FMCG, so quite literally a yogurt. When we implemented the brand first through packaging design and pack changes, sales went up by about 15% within 3 months. Then we put the communications campaign over the top and sales overall rose by 36% sustainably. But let's get back to what the strategy behind that is. And to do that, I will share my document and take you through some of our thinking. Last time we talked already about brand development and how we look at it. We look at brand development from the outside in, where we look at first, what is the brand equity, all the great things that a brand can already be trusted for, and then work inwards towards the brand values. So here, stability, trust, just a few of the obvious ones. And I just came out of a workshop with a US client where we went through all the 6 trust buckets and started gathering their trust equity. And within 90 minutes, we came out with about 120 different trust triggers that would create more trust with their customers. So here, 180 years, 52 countries as an example. And that could ladder up then to part of our all success for almost 200 years. So that could be a banking organization. In fact, here I mingled up a few different brand values from different brands that we worked with. So again, when we develop brands, we ask what it is that our stakeholders want to trust us for, and we come from the outside in by collecting all our great trust equity, aligning it with our audience desires, and define the brand values out of that. So here, therefore, 6 brand values. It doesn't actually matter which ones they are or what specifically they say, but the brand values are developed specifically for each trust bucket, because the trust buckets tell us what we need to define to be more trusted and therefore create our brand trust. But how do we know now what our brand strategy should be? What should we be focusing on? Which of those brand values are most important? And for that, we simply use our driver analysis, where it tells us very precisely which of these brand values are how important to our audience to develop more brand trust. In this case, we see that vision trust with plan to grow contributes 25% to trusting, whereas benefit trust with certainty contributes 23%. They are the biggest possible drivers. Therefore, if we look at brand strategy, that's also what we should be focusing on. If we're talking about our headline campaign and what is really what advertising people often call the single-minded focus, it's around those two brand values. In fact, the top right one is one that we utilized with the financial services organization in conjunction with benefit trust, and that led to record fund inflows and the adoption of the brand strategy and campaign across many more countries internationally. However, in the implementation, we can't just go for those two aspects. We still have to include others. If we're talking about direct marketing, if we're talking about broker conversations with their clients, whether we're talking about press releases, we still have to touch on the other trust buckets, and the quantification and driver analysis tells us how important these are and therefore guide us in the very specific messaging and, of course, in the structure and mix of those trust buckets. So therefore, when we talk about brand strategy, this schematic gives us an indication of what do we need to focus on first. And once we do that and we start to measure the impact of our activities, we can see if we're reaching our goal, whether vision trust and benefit trust grow in association. And that allows us then as well to look at what are the shifts that either we can see from our audiences and how they shift. And in this case, it has shifted from plan to grow because it has been implemented very well, kind of running its course, but certainty stays very high and infectious courage gains in importance. There are two aspects in the brand strategy that you can look at. One is you predetermine it over 3 to 5 years what you think the anticipated shifts are or how you want to steer the brand. Or you look at it in terms of audience importance from the driver analysis and react to it. When we work with clients, we take a mix between those two. It's the measurability, but sometimes we also predetermine this is what we're going to communicate because of our business strategy or organizational capabilities that sit behind it. And therefore, we can also trigger that desire to know more about a specific brand value that we can and want to be trusted for. And that can be plotted out over the notion of 2 to 3 years to up to 5 years. Realistically, it's probably 3 years, and after that it takes a review. But many of the brands that we develop stay in place for 5 to 7 years, and they take on little shifts around a core idea of what we need to be trusted for. If I go one back, you saw that it was vision trust and benefit trust most important. Then typically we see that one of those brand values stays a pivot in its importance, and then an additional new one comes in that needs to be built. And that continues over the years, where then, for example, here development trust becomes far more important, and we're getting a mix of 2, possibly even 3 trust drivers that we want to build. That's how at Mext we look at brand development and brand strategy by utilizing TrustLogic as a tool. Again, what it allows us to do, it allows us to define the brand very specifically based on what it is that our audiences want to trust us for. Define those 6 brand values that one of our clients called the docking stations with the customer. and then define as a strategy precisely over the years which of those do we want to and need to focus on to drive our brand trust higher and higher. Which topics do we need to approach, and how do we do that in the implementation with the right mix of messages to maximize our trust? That was already our short session about brand strategy today. So again, if you want to know more about it, go to trustlogic.info and simply contact us. Thank you.